I want to welcome you to beautiful downtown Miami, hot Miami, and certainly the opportunities for me to show up as an investor for the last 30 years and consultant for as many years. I've been coaching businesses for the last 15 years, and I started a mentoring program 5 years ago. More recently, I have a $1 million business challenge that I'm helping participants show up in. Is what can I learn from this? How do I step in? And I think a lot of the answers to that question is going to evolve from here, from having a really lively discussion. Certainly, I'm excited about participating in this. I think, love to do pioneering things, stepping in, but doing it correctly, doing it in a way that I can have it ongoing, be sustainable. And my question to everybody else is, of course, what are you thinking? How do you show up? What are the big ideas that perhaps I can learn from you on this? I think that's probably the learning curve that for myself and many others is learning how to use something easily, freely, and then be able to invite other people to test it out, people that we know, before we test it out with clients. So the investment in a goggle, it's anywhere from $500 to a few $1,000s. Very pricey. And I think the obstacles to using it, the connections, having somebody else to do that, the obstacles are just not conducive right now until you have full momentum, you have full participation, like Zoom, for instance. Everybody has a computer, so that made it very easily. Zoom took off very, very nicely through the COVID situation. They had a ready market. That situation is not ready yet for the immersive VR experience. Those things, like every technology is waiting for that breakthrough thing that makes it happen. What is that? Is it the COVID for Zoom? What is the breakthrough thing? And Apple's been waiting and teasing about it for coming out with their glasses that they can tie in to their computer, the computer being the iPhone and the AirPods being the ears. So all those components starts to make sense because we have it already. I've got AirPods, I've got an iPhone. I don't wear glasses, but I could if I wanted to. So just something that would make it easy. Actually, I do wear a face guard when I go. I put on my helmet when I go cycling. So I do have something over my eyes. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be so cool if I could just, as I'm going through, I could see the speed that I'm going, that I could see all the different things. And that might apply to somebody that's driving a car. We can agree that this is a newer technology for the select few. So those that have the technology, have the worth, have the speed of bandwidth, this is going to need a lot of bandwidth, have at least the eagerness to step into it. And here is that client segment. Here's the ones that would do that. Not just that they can afford it, not just that they have the means, but they have the motivation to do that. And what is the motivation? Here is what I'm starting to express based on what Lynette mentioned. What she described is a flow state, a state when you step into, you're in creative flow, learning flow, and you're actually doing something that is phenomenal. And we get rewarded with dopamine. We get rewarded with a lot of chemicals because this is a flow state. Here's what I'm starting to understand. This is a $4 trillion industry globally. It's 1/16 of the global economic gross national product, in the form of people pay for entertainers, people pay for sports. People go to see those people that are in a flow state, high performance. And so we crave it as human beings, and we're willing to pay to see somebody to rejoice. In fact, I have done that, and I do want to go see a great artist perform, and we crave that as human beings. Those people, those artists, are in a flow state. So what I'm thinking is, what if we could recreate that flow state, not just as viewers, but participants? We're actually in that flow state. So if somebody is going through that flow state and doing something that's physically phenomenal, like racing at high speeds, like going to outer space, like singing the most beautiful thing, a flow state, and we can experience that as if we are that person doing it, that people will pay money for. So that there's a couple of tangents. People that would pay money for that, but people that would pay to actually get into that flow state, because quite frankly, the companies, the individuals, the teams that perform at a higher level are gotten into that flow state, a higher level of performance. And we discovered it in sports. We've discovered it mostly sports. I think we've discovered it in the arts. It's been trying to discover it in business. How does an Amazon, how does an Apple, how does a Google get into flow state? And Google's experimented with it. They allocated a fifth of the employees' time to get into a creative state. They could do anything they want. They could create anything. And that experiment resulted in 47% or almost 50% of their revenue coming from people that created those tools when they were in that particular flow state, that permission to do that. So it works. The key is, how do we reproduce that in the business environment? And I'm in the business environment. And so how do I help an individual, a team, the organization get into a flow state? And the statistics from what I've been reading is those people that get in that flow state produce 500%, 5 times more than those that don't. Those are the things that I've read. And so even if it's twice as much, we'll take twice as much, but 5 times we'll take all the time. Maybe it varies on different circumstances. So now we're starting to say, oh, can I use virtual reality as a tool to get into this flow state faster? And the return of investment is 5 times or up to 5 times as much. So all of a sudden, I've got an immediate return on investment and a long-term return on investment financially. So now I'm highly motivated to do that financially, creatively, from a competitive standpoint. I could be faster, better, stronger than my competition. And also the path to that flow state is through learning. I can learn more. I could create more with others. And I could also get into a flow state more frequently rather than haphazardly. Here's the key is, or the thought is, what if we were able to get into a flow state on a daily basis? And if we could do it on a daily basis, let's say we take 90 minutes or 180 minutes, an hour and a half or 2 hours to be able to get in a flow state, that would give us and produce 5 times as much. So I can produce 5 times that I do the rest of the day. And it's almost like I work for 2 hours and I'm doing the equivalent of 10 hours every single day. Would I do that? Or first of all, could I do it? And maybe I can do it better with VR, virtual reality. And would I do it? Of course I would do it. I would do it every single time. Right now, I'm trying to do that with the tools that I have, with the experiences that I have, and I'm kind of haphazard. It happens occasionally because I have to have solitude for blocking out an hour, 2 hours of time. The things that I need to learn, the creativity. It's a solo environment. I only do it by myself, so I don't do it with other people for getting into that flow state. But what if that virtual reality environment allows me to get into that flow state consistently, daily, with tremendous results immediately, and potentially being able to do that with a group of people like what we have here. How much more would my potential escalate because I get into that flow state? And when I experience it as a coach, as a facilitator, as a mentor, as a consultant, as an investor, my clients obviously would want to step into. This is the things that is promised by psychedelics, by drugs, by caffeine, by Coca-Cola, by beer, by alcohol, by all those things to stimulate your brain to get in creativity. And for many years, artists thought, oh, like the Jimi Hendrix or those people that passed away, they tried drugs, cocaine, all these things to get into these altered states of creativity. And they did get to that space, those, but we don't know about the ones that didn't make it. And they paid a dear price by dying young in their 30s or 40s. With this, if we use it correctly, we can get into the altered state. We could live longer without drugs. In fact, we don't need drugs. We don't need anything else. And now we can get a higher level of productivity and financial return. That's what my clients are looking for. How do they get better than their competition? How much more money or revenue? Revenue is money is a way to measure the energy. What is the possibility? This opens it up. The client wants better strategies, better tactics, and a better experience. That's what they want that they can't get anywhere else, and they're willing to invest in that particular thing. And if we could do that, get the return on investment, especially if a client is working on a $1 billion idea. I've heard it say, if you want to make $1 billion, solve a $1 billion problem. I'm at the $1 million area. I'm looking for $1 million clients, and I want to solve their $1 million problems. And the majority are in that space. They can think $1 million versus $1 billion. So somebody that's thinking, what is my return for X amount of time? Because the biggest investment that my clients have is their time. Their time is whatever that time is. Let's say it's $10,000 an hour, or something big. If they're going to make $1 million, how much is that time worth? And if it gets them there further, it's a lot. Even if it's 10%, so that's $100,000 of that $1 million that they would invest, a 10-to-1 return. So what do they get? The key is better strategies, which is what they're looking for. The tactics is something they need to implement. So strategize and figure out the tactics, but the experience that they can have, and then take it in their organization. Now, if we're talking to a CEO or president of our organization, they want to have a competitive advantage. And if they can step into this and have a better advantage than their competition, they'll do that. And here's why they'll do that.